Bitcoin versus gold, the historic debate between Michael Saylor and Frank Giustra on April 22nd or 21st, 2021, which was hosted by Stansberry Research. I have watched this debate twice and I made my notes about it, and I'm happy to share them with you. I break it down as fast as possible into as little as possible, and I'm also going to share my view about this, as in this channel, Petra and Raphael, we are about the changes that are happening in the world, the transformation of humans and the nature, the interaction, and the shift of the energy, which is spiritually happening and also happening here in the third dimensional world. So I'm really excited about this to share my viewpoints with you, and let's get into it. So the two men that are having this debate are Michael Saylor in the left, which is the Bitcoin supporter, and on the right side Frank Giustra, which is the gold supporter. So Frank Giustra notes that Bitcoin is not a safe haven asset yet, which is definitely right, because Bitcoin is in its early stages, as well as many other cryptocurrencies. All of them are in the early stages, and only now it is different than in 2017, where it was purely speculation. Now it's still a lot of speculation, but also a lot of institutions and companies that are wanting to have a part of cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, on their balance sheet in order to protect themselves from high inflation. And another comment that Frank was saying, the gold supporter, was that Michael claims that gold is worthless and all that value that currently resides in gold will be transferred to Bitcoin. Now, this is a debate about gold and Bitcoin versus who is the better one, who is the winner, who will take it all. And I personally have a bit of different stance on that. I believe that they can both exist together and that both have a value to themselves. They're both great assets and have their own strengths and weaknesses. And this is what we will be discussing throughout this interview.
Threats are real, and I think the biggest threats are going to come from government and central banks. History has shown that governments go to extreme lengths to protect their monopoly on currency, and they will not tolerate a global decentralized currency. It's just not going to happen.
So what Frank is mentioning, of course, is that the governments and the regulators, central banks, they will be fighting when they will be threatened by new currency. They want to have their monopoly, and they definitely don't want cryptocurrency to take over their share, their control over people. And what Frank says is, there doesn't need to be a death blow to kill Bitcoin, but Bitcoin can be severely hurt by multiple cuts, and this will change its investment proposition and its value. And that's definitely true. If you think about governments or central banks which are banning the trading of cryptocurrencies in certain countries, which are making it illegal for people to own cryptocurrencies in their country, like they have discussions in India and Turkey about it. This can severely damage the price of Bitcoin and its value. And the governments do have this power, unfortunately, that they can, if they don't like something, they can shut it down. Michael then was countering with his statement that gold is not the perfect monetary asset due to inflation. Like there's still people mining for gold, and there's still new gold coming on the market, which will devalue the gold because the supply is inflating. Or there is confiscation, like it has happened in the past 100 years, that 95% of the gold was confiscated by governments. And it's immobile. It's really hard to transport gold bars from one point to another, whereas with Bitcoin you can have a simple address and transact it immediately. Then Frank goes over that central banks own 20% of all the gold and that was ever mined, and they're furiously buying it year after year. And they need to have some underlying asset, but this could be replaced by by Bitcoin, which Michael Saylor will also say in this interview. But the question is if they would do this, and the governments will definitely not be interested to shut down gold and to ruin gold, because they would shoot themselves in the foot.
It's been tested time and time again throughout history. Bitcoin has never been tested, especially in a financial crisis, because Bitcoin was introduced after the 2008 crisis. In the meantime, gold has doubled since then. Gold benefits in times of crisis and in certain times of economic expansion because of its dual purpose of use in jewelry and industry.
So what Frank is saying is that the gold has a long history in this economy, and it has been tested several times in economic downturns and crises, and Bitcoin has never had this history. Bitcoin was created after the 2008 financial crisis, and since then we haven't had a major financial crisis. We are probably in one right now. A lot of people would probably agree that we are in a huge bubble, but Bitcoin hasn't really proven itself or showed how it can perform during crisis. Frank mentions that in case of a war, I would prefer to have my assets in gold rather than Bitcoin because of the risks of cyber attacks and the power grids. This is definitely a risk that I see as well in cryptocurrencies, because it is on the web. There are cyber attacks, and it is a danger. Another danger is the scammers that trick people into giving away their private keys. It could be vulnerable to attacks like this. It is a very secure network, but who knows what is coming? And it constantly needs to be connected to the internet. It needs to have electricity to run, to work, and if something happens to the electricity supply, or if you are cut off the electricity supply, then you basically don't own anything. You don't have access to your mobile wallet, you don't have access to the internet. There is no proof that you own any Bitcoin, unless you have a paper wallet, but still you're not able to transact it because you don't have a phone. Then we go over to a point also from Frank, which is very interesting, especially for us on this channel.
You may want things to be a certain way, but you have to see the ways things truly are. And anarchism has never worked throughout history.
Anarchism has never worked in history. What are we seeing now? There is a shift of energy. There is currently this global health crisis. There are lockdowns, restrictions. We have to wear a mask. If we don't comply with the restrictions, we get a fine. In the worst case scenario, in some countries, you would even have to go to prison. Frank claims that anarchy has never worked in history, which means that the power was never really transferred to the people. It was always in the hands of central governments, of a few people, and the rest of us, we are then just the ones which have to obey, and that's it. That's the end of the story, and that's the standpoint that Frank has, and it's the old standpoint in my view, or in a lot of people's views, because we see that there is some transformation happening in the world, and a lot of people are no longer willing to accept everything that central authorities are saying. People are doubting, they are critical, they are thinking individually, and there is some transformation, and Bitcoin is therefore one of the greatest opportunities for us in this lifetime to have this wealth transfer, because it belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to a central authority. This is such a huge opportunity for us right now. Then we go over to Michael again. He says everybody will have a number of currencies on their phone, and the dollar will be the king currency, and everybody will be using the dollar. A lot of other countries' fiat currencies will probably go down. I don't fully trust this, as we saw that US dollar is going to be very inflated since the last year, and it will have a huge effect. And I have here this Twitter post where this guy Charlie Bilello is mentioning the commodity prices over the last year, and you can see gasoline up 182%, corn up 84%, silver 65%, cotton 54%. That these are huge numbers within 1 year, and this is really nicely demonstrating about the inflation. And if the US dollar is going to be the king currency, I don't know. I am from Switzerland, and in Europe there is the euro, which is very strong. Swiss franc happens to be also quite a strong currency, even though it's very small. But I don't believe that Europeans, most of them, would be interested in using the US dollar because we are not associated with the US government as such. It is a different authority, and why would we be interested in owning a currency from a country where we don't have anything to say in, where we don't live? I just don't really believe this is realistic. However, when the US dollar would turn out to be a very stable currency, then I could imagine it to be staying and to probably replace a lot of other countries' currencies. Then Frank has a really good argument. He quotes, in case that the governments and regulators would sort of shut down operations correlated with Bitcoin, who would take the risk if prison time is the penalty to hold or use Bitcoin? This is definitely a huge risk. If we see, for example, in India, they say they will ban cryptocurrency trading. It is illegal to hold cryptocurrencies. If you have to go to prison when you hold cryptocurrencies, why would you be taking this risk? The question is, if we as the people, as the majority on this planet, if we can become free of governments' rules. This is not known yet. If you go somewhere and you don't wear a mask, you can immediately be fined. Well, 3 years ago, this would have not been possible. It's also like saying, hey, if you don't wear a funny hat, then you're getting a fine. Basically, the government can do anything with us. So the question is if we will be keeping to accept this and surrender to the government and to the authorities, or if there will be some transformation which we will see in the future. Then about the governments and their monopolies. Here another little preview from the interview.
Governments will use any excuse knowing that the real reason is going to be to protect their monopoly on currency and keep their ability to execute monetary and fiscal policy, but they'll use other excuses if they want to go after Bitcoin. Crime, consumer protection, the environment. They can say, Bitcoin produces more CO2 emissions than 1 billion cars. Money laundering. And the catch-all phrase, national security. And if they can use national security to renegotiate bilateral trade deals, don't think that they can't use it if Bitcoin becomes a threat to the currency.
So this is basically much nicer explained what I just said, or what I meant to express, that the government will use any excuse to protect their monopoly. And he continues with saying,
their own digital currencies, everybody's looking into. China's the most advanced, and they're not going to want the competition. And if Bitcoin gets big enough, they will go after it and eliminate it. And that's just the way the world works.
That's just the way the world works. This is a statement which I generally don't like from about anything from anyone, because changes are happening all the time and there is not one constant. The only constant is change, and therefore this statement is, in my opinion, not valid. What does Michael Saylor say in the rebuttal about this? He says that Bitcoin is the most popular asset in the world in history. There are 3 million new users per month, and by the end of the year, half of the American voters will be owning Bitcoin. This is his argument that it's just too big to fail, or it's really big, so people have to cope with it and governments have to accept it. I don't really know how strong this argument is, but it's definitely a fact. Then Michael Saylor also has another argument.
Central banks don't own any Bitcoin. As soon as one country starts to buy Bitcoin for their central bank, the price is going to rip.
So this is definitely a good point, that if some central bank in any country in the world would decide to have a portion of Bitcoin or to buy some Bitcoin, this will be really a huge transformation, and other central banks will most likely follow, depending on what country it is, especially if it's a bigger country, a more strong country economically. But right now, the countries are working on their own digital currency, the central bank digital currencies, which are in the works and in some countries are already being tested. Michael was then also saying about gold that it creates violence, that in history there was a lot of blood on gold, a lot of harm, a lot of theft, and while it is true, there can also be made the same argument about Bitcoin. It's much newer, so there's not that many, not such a big history as for gold, but there are many, many more scammers that are coming that try to steal people's money. They, not necessarily hackers only, this is also a big threat to cryptocurrencies. But as the value goes up, so many people start to scam others and get them to give up their private keys and steal their money. Now, this is the next part will be my favorite part from this entire interview, and actually the reason why I'm making this video.
No, Michael, I think you're fighting the wrong fight. Gold is the least of your worries. You need to keep your eye on central banks and governments, because they're going to be the ones that you need to look out for.
I 100% agree with Frank on this one. Gold is not really a concern for Bitcoin in my eyes. Why would it be a threat? It's a metal. It's coming from planet Earth. Nobody can print it. It's just the Earth that is providing it to us. And besides that, a lot of people love to own jewelry in gold. I will not be selling my gold that I own, and I believe that it will keep to have its place in our economy, and it will stay very important. Next, we're having the gold supply discussion, that basically gold can be mined to infinity and there's always going to be more, and Bitcoin has only 21 million which can ever be created. Yeah, there is definitely a point in gold mining, but it's still a resource from nature which cannot be recreated, so I don't see this personally as a big problem. Then Michael is saying that as a difference to the Bitcoin miners, gold miners are mining gold not because they want to hold it, but because they want to sell it as fast as possible. They want to mine as much gold as possible and want to sell it as fast as possible because they don't believe in its value going up. That's why they're not interested in holding it. They just want to exchange it for currencies. whereas Bitcoin miners, they are interested to hold part of their minings in their wallets, and another part they will give out for it to be sold and traded, because they see the value in it, and the future performance is creating capital gains for them. Then further, they were also discussing about the environmental damage, of course, like in every debate about Bitcoin, and here it was also about gold. This was a debate, I'm not getting into that. Then there was a discussion about ownership and risks, and Michael was saying that Bitcoin holders are usually maximalists and they want to elevate the entire civilization. And this is also what I personally see. I'm owning cryptocurrencies and I believe in its future, and I wanted to really make it. I wanted to stay here because it's a currency which, again, it belongs to us, it belongs to the people. You know, when I own Swiss franc, for example, I'm basically invested in Switzerland, in the central bank of Switzerland. I'm trusting them that they know what to do with their money. If they decide during crisis to print more money and it's devaluing the Swiss franc, this is basically, I'm voting. This is my vote right for this country. And the question is really, what is riskier? Is it riskier to own cryptocurrencies, or is it riskier to own fiat currencies at the moment? And I own a little bit of both. I'm glad that the Swiss franc is historically a currency which also have served for a lot of people as a safe haven, but also Switzerland is printing a lot of money and putting a lot of debt into the economy. So I don't want to hold everything in Swiss franc, and I don't know which currency is going to perform best, if it's US dollar, euros, Swiss francs. Currently I'm in the Czech Republic, so is the Czech crown going to make it? I don't know, but I feel that it's risky to not own any cryptocurrencies at the moment, because it is a scarce asset. It is for Bitcoin, for example, there's never going to be more than 21 million, and the value will keep getting higher when there are more people interested in it. Then we have some sort of religious or spiritual viewpoint.
Frank, Michael said that if God designed gold with no imperfections, he would have designed Bitcoin, that it is thermodynamically perfectly sound money. How do you respond to this market force, Frank, that seems inevitable?
Well, I think you might be right that had God designed it, it might have been Bitcoin, but I think, you know, it doesn't look like he did. Much like God did not design a world of eternal peace, no competition between nation states, no lust for power, no greed, and we're all sitting around the campfire holding hands singing Kumbaya. That's not the world we live in. We live in a very real world of competition, and I think this is where gold plays a very important role.
So this is also a point which I am very happy to share here in this video. It is that he has a strong belief about how we used to live is going to be how we will be living in the future. He really trusts that nothing is going to change, that we will be staying this competitive world. We will be fighting over things. Again, central authorities are making all the decisions about everything, and the people are just obeying. I do not believe that this is going to be like this in the next few decades, because we see this spiritual transformation. We are having great awakening. A lot of people are becoming conscious all of a sudden. We shift into the fifth dimension, as you can also call it, into the quantum field. We become aware that we are not only matter, and we are actually spiritual beings, and we are here for the spiritual evolution. We are not here for success, money, fame, and strength. We are here for our spiritual evolution. This is our path, and we are here right now for a purpose, and we want this world to transform from the egoistic, the selfish thinking, to the thinking for people, for groups. We come together, we unite, and we connect our hearts, and we move towards something greater, towards something more conscious, more loving to this planet, more loving to other beings, whether it's animals, plants, or other humans. This is the way we are going right now, and it is inevitable. I don't know how long it will take, but it is definitely a transformation. This is the reason why I'm so excited and confident about cryptocurrencies, because it allows us exactly this. We will no longer have the 3D fiat currencies from the central banks, but we will have 5D currency like Bitcoin and a lot of other cryptocurrencies, which will be probably very successful in the future. They are 5D currency. We can't touch it, but it is helping us in becoming more free, more independent, and that's exactly what it is for. And that's why so many Bitcoin maximalists or believers or whatever you want to call them are so passionate about it, and they want to get it out there. And as Michael Saylor was saying, they want to elevate the entire civilization.
I know that Bitcoin followers, a lot of them, not all of them, are real idealists. And Michael is promising you that that world will be delivered to you. I just don't see it. That's not the world we live in. We live in a very, very competitive, ugly world. And I just don't see he's going to achieve that sort of global utopian vision that Bitcoin is going to answer the problems to everything in this world.
So here we see once more explained a bit with other words his vision, that he believes that everything is going to stay the same, and this is just the way the world works. It's also the approach of a lot of people that I know in my environment and where I grew up. There are just things that, like, the world is a certain way and it's going to be like this forever, and just adapt to it. No, there is some transformation happening, and even if a lot of people don't see it, it is happening and it is going to come. This is our viewpoint. Then Frank in the end was also saying that he is not a fan of the social media bullying, of the bullying for the critics of cryptocurrencies, when they have laser eyes or have things like have fun staying poor. The memes can sometimes be really mean. It is fun for a lot of people, but we also want to stay humble. This is my view, and Peter Brandt was quoting something really nice today, which I liked. I'm going to show it to you. I hope you can see it here. The market for centuries has accomplished the task of humbling the proud. So if we're becoming too proud, too greedy, no matter on what side we are, the market doesn't care, and the market is going to wake us up. We want to stay humble. We want to stay grateful for the things we have right now. We can keep going on our path. We can keep believing in our truth, but it's important that we stay humble. It's just a better way to go about things. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I could break it down for you as simple as possible. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't so already, if you're interested into the changes in the world that are happening right now. We are passionate about this. We love to share our viewpoint about things, and we love to do our part to help people wake up from the dream and to evolve. Thank you so much for watching.